Salazar, the Mayor of Nashua. Director Moshegan of the airport. Director Jackson of the airport, and Director Stevens of the airport. Wendell Berthelsen of the Aviation Museum. And Diane Sheehan. Alvin, he dispelled the myth that you could not be French and smart both. And for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is George Hickey, and I'm proud to say that Alvin Augustus Lucier was my grandfather. The purpose of this dedication is to bring about recognition for the accomplishments that Alvin achieved in his lifetime. Alvin was born in 1896 in Nashua and grew up in Nashua. As a young boy, he was an accomplished violinist, and he studied under the tutelage of some people from the Boston Symphony. He also served in what was then the Aviation Corps, now the United States Air Force. He was torn between his love of music and pursuing a law degree, as his father had a law practice in Nashua. Alvin's father was an attorney in Nashua, so Alvin decided to put his music career on hold and attend Dartmouth College, and that was in 1918. He then went on to BU, where he got his law degree in 1920. The same year he passed the bar and joined his father's practice in Nashua. In 1923, Helen Keller sent out a call to the Lions Club across the country to establish different chapters to be the Knights of the Blind. Alvin and his friend William Hillman answered that call, and in 1923 established the Nashua chapter of the Lions Club. In 1943, Alvin was elected mayor of Nashua, where he served 2 terms. That same year, entrepreneur Harry Atwood and his pal, the avid aviator, started the Aero Club of New Hampshire, bringing air-mindedness to the community. My grandfather had a sweeping vision that aviation was key to the vitalization and the future of Nashua. And in order to achieve that, he needed an airport. So he lobbied the federal government to raise the $5,000 to purchase the land that we're now standing on. His friend Jim Tamposi and he actually physically walked the perimeter to measure the land to get the value of the land. At that time, this land was inhabited by transients. These were known as Hoovervilles back in the day. From 1937 to 1939, Alvin served as the Executive Council, which is the highest formal instrument of government. It's part of the executive branch, and it carries out acts of government. And in 1940, he was the sole delegate from New Hampshire for the Democratic National Convention. Some of Alvin's other accomplishments consist of being the clerk of the New Hampshire House of Representatives, a city solicitor, treasurer of Hillsborough County, chairman and commissioner of the New Hampshire Aeronautics Club. He also served on the executive committee of the United States Defense Savings Staff. I have no idea what that is. He was president of the Community Concert Association for 20 years, thereby holding on to his love for music. Those are some of Alvin's professional achievements, and I'm just going to be brief and tell you a little bit about them. Over dinner, Thanksgiving family dinners, stories would be told that Alvin would fly from Dunstable Airport with his wife and kids to Wells, land on the beach, drop them off, come back, perform his duties as mayor, fly back and pick them up. This was before there was any instrumentation. And talking to some of the pilots here at this airport, it was that he would take off from Dunstable, look for the ocean, and then head north and land. He married my grandmother, Catherine Lemry, raised 4 children here in Nashua: Louise, Connie, Helen Agnes, my mother, and his son, Alvin Jr. One of the other duties as mayor back in the day was in the wintertime to see if the ponds were safe for the children to skate on. He'd have to drive his Packard onto the ice. And I got to believe there was a better way. Okay, now I'm going to start to introduce some people that would like to get up and speak, and first it's the Honorable Donna Loza.
Okay. Well, good morning. Good morning. That was pretty good, you guys. If you were students, I'd make you do it again, but we'll let you. So we're fortunate to have a lovely day to be out here, and I think that when I was thinking about what I would say today, I thought I would start by telling you how this began. So you've heard a little bit about Mayor Lucier. What you don't know is about a year ago, George called, wanted to talk to me about an idea he had. And so we spoke about him wanting to put a marker somewhere in this community to recognize his grandfather's service to the community. And we talked about an area over next to Mount Pleasant School. And I said, well, I have to check with your ward alderman, who at the time was Alderman Diane Sheehan, who's now an alderman at large. And I said, we have to make sure that there's, no problems with that, and then if that's the case, we'll move forward. Okay, so all was fine. We started looking into it. And then I went out to look at the site that we had talked about, and I thought, it's kind of in the middle of a couple of streets. Who's really going to get out and look at it? So I said to George, let's do a little history. So between the two of us, I think we've got his whole history. But City Clerk Paul Bergeron dug up all this history. He went back, he found speeches, he found all kinds of things that he had about Mayor Lucier. And I was surprised to find in all the times that I've worked with the airport, which I've done for many years, and I also actually served as an airport authority commissioner back in the day in the 90s, had no real idea about his connection to the airport. And so we both got pretty jazzed about the idea of what if the airport said we could do something here. And so, I want to thank George, first of all, for understanding how important it is to remember the people that have built our community. And then I want to thank the airport for their immediate approval of let's do something here. And this is such a nice gathering spot. I also wanted to share with you that the stone that we're using is a stone that was recovered from the Baldwin Street Bridge, which I'm not sure, but I'm trying to find out, was around that same era of the time that Mayor Lucier served, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'll find out for sure and let you know, but either way, you all know we're doing that construction on the Baldwin Street Bridge, and we've taken out the old railroad bridge, and so there sits a piece of granite from that bridge. So I know that George mentioned a few of the things that the mayor was involved with, but also the construction of Holman Stadium, the location for the FAA Center. I mean, these are things that I think most people, over years you take for granted. Sewer work, we'd like to really thank him for that. But I mean, it's little things, it's infrastructure, it's things that people don't see but years later understand and appreciate. As I say to people all the time, the wisdom of a good decision is not always immediately evident. But here we stand, years after, a very young mayor, died at 56. But he accomplished so much in his time here because he was willing to have vision. He understood about getting partnerships together, like the Tamposies and others that have built this airport, and that's what really matters. That's what makes a community. Somebody that's willing to do that, and people that are out there believing in them, making it happen. So those of you that are here today are believers, and you understand the benefit of something this special. And so, George, thank you for investing your time and energy into doing something this wonderful in our community.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. If you saw the article in Saturday's paper about my grandfather, there was a photograph on the second page of a group of gentlemen standing in the hangar at the original dedication for the airport. I received an email from a gentleman named Conrad Pelletier, who said that when he was 9 years old, he attended that dedication. And he's with us today, and he'd like to get up and say a few words. Conrad?
it's so these kind of people, you know, should we call them mayor? Should we call them a musician? Should we call them a lawyer? Should we call them an entrepreneur? All of these things actually fit. I wonder if there's anybody older than me that attended this event. No takers? Well, I'm 88, and you'd have to be up to 96 to have attended before me, unless you're 88 also. So when I saw the ad in the paper, it came to me that this is something I should probably come here and talk about. When I was here, my grandparents, my mother and father came down here. I was into model airplanes and stuff like that, so I think that the mayor certainly added my desire to fly, and I flew for 55, 60, almost 60 years here in Nashua. And it certainly was a great experience for me and to see some of my fellow pilot friends out here. It's a wonderful experience. In any event, the story goes like this. Of course, you know Ruth Nichols was a famous aviator, and Clarence Chamberlain also. Now, they were both here for this event. And of course, the history of those two people, Clarence Chamberlain was a little bit late in crossing the Atlantic. This guy by the name of Levine, and they were having difficulty as to who were going to be the pilot or what airplane they were going to use. Anyway, they ended up deciding on a Blanca, but unfortunately, Lindbergh had already decided to leave. So Lindbergh left, I think it was on the 19th, and Clarence left on the 4th of June. Now, Mr. Levine, Clarence and Levine were having all sorts of difficulties. At any rate, Clarence is ready to leave, and Levine is there in his ordinary clothes, and all of a sudden he runs and jumps into the back seat of the airplane. Apparently he left some of his flying clothes in the airplane. So his wife says, "Stop that man, stop that man." Apparently she was inclined to let him go. Nevertheless, so they ended up flying and landed in Germany, and they landed at a small airport. They said, "Well, this is not the right one," so they started off again, and they landed at another airport, and they got lost again. The second airport, they had quite a few people. Finally, he ended up at Templehof, and there were 100,000 people. Now, the strange part of the story is this. On their way flying across, there was a cruiser by the name of Memphis, and Lindbergh was on his way back, and they were flying across the ocean. Wow. So that's kind of an unusual situation. In any event, then of course Clarence started an airline. He built Condors. This was a 3-engine aircraft, and he brought it here. He was trying to start an airline industry, but apparently it didn't work. So he used his the Condors as a something to fly people around and so forth, raise money that way. The other interesting thing, by the way, Ruth Nichols also was here, but she had gotten into an accident not too long before that. She attempted to try to go across the ocean, but she crashed in New Brunswick. In any event, her story is dynamic. A woman, she broke all kinds of records, altitude records, speed records for women. She flew a diesel aircraft. No such thing today that I'm aware of. But way back, she flew a diesel aircraft and gained an altitude record. She also flew a Delta Dot at 1,000 miles an hour at 51,000 feet. Following that, she was involved in a lot of things, Fairchild Aircraft Company, and so forth. And ultimately, she went into the Mercury program. And that would have been a culmination of her flying. Unfortunately, she passed one test, and of course they were against women anyway, so that was a difficult thing. And ultimately she did pass the 2 tests, but the program was shelved. And this was 1959, and whether this had anything to do with it, she committed suicide in 1960. And maybe this would have been the epitome of her flying career, and since she didn't get it, that was the way it ended. Okay, the thing that caught my eye, and the story, of course, is that being here at 9, Clarence Chamberlain, now you read about Harry Atwood and the wooden aircraft. Apparently it was on the field here now, supposedly it was the first flight, though how they got it here I don't know. But Clarence was a barnstormer. So you can expect that he was going to add a little bit of story to this thing. So this small aircraft, which reminded me of an AA-1, if you know anything about aircraft, it's a low wing type of thing. At any rate, the aircraft pulls up by the crowd. He gets in, got a parachute, tries to take off, and can't get it off the ground. So he comes back to the audience, takes his parachute off. Everybody said, "Whoa, what a brave guy." Then he went back, took off, and flew the thing. So that was the story of Clarence Chamberlain, and I hope this adds a little bit of the story to George's information. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. Director Gordon Jackson from the airport.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of the Nashua Airport Authority and the Nashua Airport community, I'd like to welcome you here this morning. And a special thanks to the Meteorology Department for giving us this fine weather, and also the Nashua maintenance crew. The park looks like it's never looked before. So Dan's not here, but my hat's off to Dan because I know he worked real hard to prepare for this day. I have some brief comments that I'd like to read from, please. These are mainly garnered from the history of the airport that previous commissions that have been good enough to put together. So if they're wrong, you can blame them. Return for a moment to the 1930s, if you will. A period of great financial and emotional upheaval for the country, as many of you recall or have heard stories about. A time when there was no commercial aviation, and, in the minds of many, no reason for such a far-fetched idea to exist. Despite the feats of Lindbergh and Earhart, the nation really hadn't embraced the concept of air transport or services. Barnstormers and their lot were not high in the social order. Picture then Pine Hill Road where we stand today. Quite likely a small rutted country road with only 3 houses on its entire length. Probably not connected in any real way to Nashua, a mere 4 miles away. The land behind us, sandy with scrub pine, not suited for any agricultural use. What with the Depression straining an already tight city budget, there probably says, what's the change? What's the difference? Who would have had the audacity to suggest to the city fathers to acquire this property at considerable expense to construct an airport, of all things? Mayor Alvin Augustus did just that, acquiring 160 acres and in so doing qualifying Nashua for federal support. Hundreds of workers were put to the task by the Civil Works Administration and the Federal Emergency Relief Administration with only hand tools, believe it or not, with only hand tools, wheelbarrows, you name it, to level this land and construct the runway. A ditch, again dug by hand, surrounded the entire field, marking the boundary, and close at hand, where the fire station now stands, by the way, stood a dormitory, mess, and recreation hall for these transient workers. Bold actions often yield bold results, and there is no doubt that Mayor Lucier's ahead-of-his-time boldness in building this airport resulted in one of the greatest assets in our city's economic history, as well as that of our state and the entire region. On a global scale, this tiny airport has played a significant role in the overall development of an air transport system that spans the globe. In defense of our nation, through the training of young airmen, such as Ensign Paul Bois, for whom this field is so aptly named. And consider the thousands, yes thousands, of young commercial pilots who have graduated from Daniel Webster College and other training programs on this field, and the unmeasurable economic benefit to the city and the state. For these reasons and more, the Nashua Airport Authority is honored to recognize the foresight, determination, and success that Mayor Alvin A. Lucier achieved in creating the Nashua Airport at Bois Field. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Special Assistant to Senator Ayotte, Simon Thompson.
Thank you, George. It's always an honor and a pleasure to share a stage with Councilor Zoric, Mayor Lozo, and to get to meet Director Jackson this morning. Senator Ayotte does regret that she can't be here today, but she did ask me to represent her today and to read a real brief letter. And before I do that, I just, as I did some research on Mayor Lucier, learned about just the many things that he was able to accomplish in his short life, a lot of which we've heard about today. I thought to myself, in this age of smartphones, I wondered how he was able to accomplish all that without an iPhone or an Android. But it truly, I say that in jest, but it truly does amaze me as I look back on that generation that went before me and a lot of us here to see how much they were able to accomplish, and especially in such a short time. So I just wanted to say that from a personal standpoint, and to read this brief letter from Senator Ayotte. Dear friends, today I join with the community leaders, family, and friends in recognizing the amazing career of former Mayor Alvin Lucier. Mayor Lucier is being honored for the hard work and dedication he demonstrated over many years of public service to our great city. If not for Mayor Lucier, we may not be standing here today at the Nashua Airport. Due to his vision and tireless efforts in bringing an airport to the Gate City, residents and businesses alike now benefit from having the convenience of their own general aviation airport. I would like to present this American flag, which was flown over the U.S. Capitol, to the family of Mayor Lucier in recognition of his many accomplishments on behalf of Nashua. The people of Nashua, New Hampshire are lucky to have had such an amazing public servant like Mayor Lucier. His example of giving back to your community is one we should all strive to emulate. Thank you for inviting me to today's ceremony. I trust it will be a great success. Best wishes, Kelly Ayotte, U.S. Senator. And I'll read this brief certificate that accompanies the flag. The flag of the United States of America this is the certified. The accompanying flag was flown over the United States Capitol on behalf of former Mayor Alvin A. Lucier at the request of Honorable Kelly Ayotte, U.S. Senator, in memory of his dedicated service to the city of Nashua, New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce the Honorable Ray Zoric, former Mayor of Manchester and current Executive Council and a friend of my family's.
Thank you, George. But I want to correct him. I am not on the Executive Council anymore. I was there for 11 years. But I'm very, very pleased here to be here today to honor Alvin Lucier. Airports have a little closeness to my heart, because I was the mayor when we first started embarking on the improvements at Manchester Airport. And the director at that time was Fred Testa, who is George's brother-in-law. And George's brother-in-law's wife, Cappy, was one of my secretaries. And Cappy, and I know the personality she has, and I know where George gets it, is that people would call my office and they're always mad about something. And when she got through talking to them, they didn't know why they called, but they were happy. And she said, "Now don't forget to vote for the mayor." And that was her closing line. So he comes from a line of good stock. But, you know, if you have not seen the FAA, you probably should go over there and take a look. It's amazing what you see over there because you can track all the planes that are coming in, big ones, small ones, they're all on that radar. And it's a very, very interesting trip. And I have flown out of this airport once that I can remember, and that was when Sam Tamposi and Jerry Nash were flying people down to Florida to Citrus Hills. And I was on one of those planes and I wound up buying a piece of property down there. So I went up, I came back, and I was a poor man when I got back, but I had some property in Florida. But, you know, anybody that had the foresight to do what was done here is utterly amazing, and it takes a lot of vision. And that's really the job of a mayor. As Donna Lee knows, if things go well, you get the credit, and if things go bad, you get the blame. And there doesn't seem to be anything that is in between. But, you know, this is really a tremendous asset to the city of Nashua. And it's a beautiful little airport. So I am very pleased to be here to honor the memory of Alvin Lucier. And he was the mayor. I hate to say that I was born when he was the mayor, but I was. But I wasn't too old at that time. I was only 6. And I know somebody that was here is a little bit older than I am who was doing the speaking. So I was not here. But I was at that time in Connecticut. But airports are a very important part of any community. And whether it's in Nashua or Manchester, it takes people with vision to begin to work to bring some of these things to the community. And this is really a very important contribution to the city of Nashua. You know, they were talking about the fact, somebody mentioned, you know, that they always thought the French were French and dumb. Well, they're not dumb at all. As a matter of fact, in the city of Manchester, if you weren't French, you weren't going to be the mayor for 40 years. That's the way it went. And eventually, things changed. And all of a sudden, they had an Irish mayor. Then they had a Polish mayor. And now things are all mixed up over there. So who knows what the future holds in either Nashua or Manchester. But this is really a great state that we all live in. And I think the contributions that each of us make, no matter how small, is the sum total of all those contributions that make the things that are good come true in our communities. And George, I want to thank you for inviting me. Like I said, he comes from very good stock. I have a little relationship with them, and they are really good, decent people. And that goes back a long, long way. Thank you very much for inviting me. And Donna, good luck to you. I know what you're going to be going through again.
Thank you, Rick. There are some people that I need to thank that has helped put this together. And first would be my beautiful wife, Maida Latvis. I learned that if you want to get anything done in Nashua, you call the mayor, she calls Carolyn Modellaro, and it's done. So Carolyn, thank you very much. Donna Loso, thank you very much. From the Nashua Airport, I'd like to thank Stephen Bork, who's been instrumental in all of this. And Susan Clancy has been wonderful. She's been responsive. And Dan Moreau, who beautified this park and did all the physical work of all of this. I'd also like to thank John Abera and Jeff LaFleur from the Four Hills Landfill. That's where we got the monument. And they delivered it here. And let's see if I'm forgetting anyone else. No. That closes this dedication. I'd like to thank you all for coming. We're going to have some refreshments.